Howdy folks, welcome to another episode of It Came From Facebook. Today we're looking at Royal Enfield sellers. Now this is kind of an esoteric market. I feel like Royal Enfields really have come into their own in the last 4 or 5 years, and now we're really starting to see them on the resale market. And I think we're going to see today that there's a big difference between Royal Enfield sellers and everybody else. And I have good news for you. Let's start out with this first one, a 2022 Continental GT going for $4,900. Geez, look at this bike. It is super clean. This fella says selling this bike for a buddy, and it's only got 698 miles on it. It's practically in mint condition. This is a brand new bike, basically. Bought it new in 2024 with 5 miles on it, 650cc fuel injection, Diablo, blinkers, headlight visors, rear back seat cowl. He's got a new battery, clean title in hand. Overall, this bike is basically brand new, is extremely clean, needs nothing, would make a great bike for someone to ride around. Asking $4,900 cash. He has the phone number, everything listed here. What I'm going to tell you today about Royal Enfield on the used market is I believe these are the best value used bikes you can get right now. Because the guys who buy these bikes are very reasonable adults. Every Royal Enfield I see is owned by someone who just wanted something classic, just wanted something they could enjoy. It's hardly ever some stupid kid who's like modifying it to hell and back. If you guys saw our CF Moto video last week, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know, if you're in the market for something retro, classic, pretty, I mean, $4,900 for basically a brand new bike. This is a screaming deal with this green paint job, everything fresh on it. Let's take a look at some of the other photos. Gentleman is at a junkyard, maybe to help his own bike look better, but it's about as clean as it gets, man. This thing is barely through its first break-in service. Actually, a lot of our giveaway bikes, we actually give away in this exact same condition as a brand new motorcycle with like a little over 600 miles on it because that's what we put on to make videos with it. So this bike was barely ridden. It even has a nice little tail tidy on it, aftermarket exhaust from what I can tell. This thing probably sounds really nice, looks really good. You know, this is a bike that for the price for $4,900, I mean, everyone's going to be looking at this bike. It has a classic, beautiful silhouette, very classic taste to it. And with that 650cc air-cooled twin, a very charming, characterful energy about it too. And if you can get that done for $4,900, that is a slam dunk in my opinion. So I'm very bullish on Royal Enfield sellers. I think they're very cool. And I think there's even more we're going to see here. Moving on. So you say $4,900 is too much, Yam. I want less. Okay, 2022 Continental GT going for $4,500. This original MSRP for this bike was about $6,199. This bike does have a little bit more mileage on it, but again, owned by someone who actually cared for the machine. So mileage isn't as important as is scheduled maintenance, ownership, person writing incomplete sentences. So you check out this one. It says, I purchased this motorcycle new from TJ's. I've done all the scheduled maintenance on it. It has 6,400 miles on it. It's been mostly garage kept and used almost exclusively for commuting and trips around town. So just a bop around town kind of bike. Obviously wasn't tracked or anything, not like my Royal Enfield that I had, where I infamously tracked it and almost high-sided it, which was a lot of fun. This one just used for its intended purpose. It has a new battery and starter solenoid. That's kind of an interesting one to replace. No accidents or crashes. I took the mufflers off because I like how it looks and sounds more without them. I love that. Not insanely loud, but definitely loud enough for drivers on the highway to know you're there. Works great and everything works. I'm selling it to make/save some money because we have a baby on the way. Well, congratulations to the seller. Comes with a spare key, service manual. Happy to ask or answer any questions. So this is what I mean, like a reputable person. You don't see this with CF Motos. You know, CF Motos have been like self-selected for like degenerates and delusional people. Suzuki people are like crusty old timers that are confused about everything. I think Royal Enfield and Honda people are the closest aligned in terms of how good they are on an alignment chart. But let's take some more photos of this one. I mean, yeah, like $4,500. The other one is, I mean, to me, a screaming deal. $4,900 for one that has 600 miles on it that's brand new. I'll take that over this one every day. But if you are very price conscious, I mean, all this one really needs is probably some sort of muffler at the end to make the sound a little bit cleaner, a little bit better. But, you know, if red's your thing, this is a good-looking motorcycle. It looks like it was cared for really well. And it just continues the mold of what I talked to you guys about. Royal Enfield, I think, is the best value. I think it's sellers that have their heads screwed on straight. I can find like at least 10 of these within 100 miles of me, and that really is saying something. And maybe that's just the Austin market, baby. Maybe here in Austin, Texas, we have a litany of amazing Royal Enfields to choose from. I don't know, but moving on. Next up is a 2022 Royal Enfield Interceptor 650 for $4,000, even lower than the other two that we saw, and maybe the best one of all. So it says this bike has been garage kept its whole life and is in perfect condition. It's had the dealer recommended break-in service at 500 and a lot of quality aftermarket parts. 1,900 miles. 1,900 miles. I do not want to hear it anymore. That in your local area, you only see crap boxes and terrible motorcycles for sale, all for like $9,000. I don't want to hear it, dude. I really don't. I'm finding these a dime a dozen here in Texas. And you know what? Maybe you say, yeah, I don't live in Texas. That's too damn bad. Apparently, I live in the golden promised area to buy amazing motorcycles. I don't know what to tell you. Maybe you should move somewhere where you have the same. So they have an AEW exhaust. They have a DNA Racing air intake, a Dart fly screen, Royal Enfield engine and crash guards, and a quad lock mount / battery tender quick connect. This person says, this is probably the cleanest used Royal Enfield in the DFW area. It would make a great first bike or fun commuter / weekend toy. It makes 60 mpgs, which is really nice. Cruises at 80-ish. I've had an Interceptor 650, the exact same giveaway bike we did. Ours did not have that cool two-tone paint, though, so that's going to be a little bit more for that. The seller says, most importantly, this is a super engaging, easy-to-ride bike that makes all the right noises and looks fantastic. You know, I can't really deny that, right? Like, Royal Enfield nails that just very simple criteria of, like, does the bike look cool? Does it sound cool? Does it ride pretty good? Yeah, it does all those things very well at a very affordable price. And I just love that, you know? I've really come to really appreciate and love the Royal Enfield brand, I gotta say, over the years. Let's take a look at some of the photos close up on the exhaust headers. We do appreciate that. And 1,900 miles on the clock, you're not gonna see anything really out of the ordinary here. It looks like a brand new motorcycle that maybe got ran through the rain a couple of times. Seller just, you know, popped over through a little gravel side road. That's why you see a little bit of gravel on the tires and, you know, a little bit of caked up stuff on the oil filter. That is really no big deal at all. It just means the bike is dirty, which he probably just got there to take the photo. Everything else looks really clean. This AEW exhaust, I'm not familiar with it. It does say India on it, so maybe this is a Royal Enfield specific mod that people do in India. Maybe this is an Indian manufacturer of exhausts because Royal Enfield is an Indian brand. Tires still have the little nipples on them, the little pokers on the tires there. So you can tell this thing has not really been leaned over that hard. This person's just mobbing around with this bike, just having fun with it, you know? And here we see the DNA air filter, a little hot rod mod to your Royal Enfield. It's not going to add a ton of power, but it's just going to make it honk a little bit better, breathe in air a little bit nicer. Here we see clean on the dash, 1,939 miles, that classic twin analog gauge, which is kind of nice to see in the day of TFT screens everywhere, even on our modern classics. As we say here on the channel, it is a shame we see modern classics with a screen, but this one does not have it. It's a beautiful dash here. And overall, this is, I think, so far the most fantastic pickup of them all. $4,000 for this. It's basically brand new, has less mileage than the one we just saw. I think the paint scheme is super cool, super classic, and this is a bike you would be very happy with for $4,000. So again, this just tells me that the type of person that owns this machine really cares for it. And again, I can find these kind of Royal Enfields all day, every day. So if you're in market for a motorcycle, you're trying to buy something, you tell me, Yam, I can't find anything for the good price points. I can't find anything at all. I'm telling you, the deals are out there, especially right now in that winter time frame. This is the best time of the year to buy bikes because the demand is so low. Nobody's out buying bikes right now because they're not willing to be patient and to wait maybe a month or two until riding season kicks back up in March and April, where a lot of you guys up in the cold, frigid north live. But if you can buy now, you can get a good deal, be patient, put this thing on a battery tender, wait, and you're going to be very happy that you did. This is a great listing. Moving on. Middleweight sport bike, beginner bike, leader bike, blah, 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 blah. This year it's different. Look at this thing. Transverse V, green, Moto Guzzi. Have you ever seen anything like it? I sure haven't, and it's up for grabs on yammynoob.co. It's our newest giveaway bike. You've been asking, begging, pleading for something different. Well, here you go. This is what it looked like. You may not like it.
but this is what it looks like. Become a member on my website, join the Discord, have a good time, get all the exclusive content you could want, and you'll get entered to win this machine. If that doesn't sound good to you, you can always pick up some merch. A hat, a hoodie, a t-shirt, every dollar you spent is an entry to win, subject to a multiplier. Don't sleep on it, hit that link down below. Now let's get back to the show.
All right, let's drop it even further, boys. A 2024 Meteor 350 for $37.50. Now, I wanted to include this one because there's something interesting happening in the 350 segment for Royal Enfield bikes. This is what we're calling the new beginner light category. These like sub 25 horsepower machines, sub $5,000 machines. This machine originally MSRP'd at $46.99, and seller wants $37.50 for it. So they bought it and said it was purchased new from the motorcycle shop, and says, yes, it only has 160 miles. That's crazy. I can't really understand why you would sell a bike after only 160 miles, but somebody's got to do. Really quick, somebody do the math for me right now. From an MSRP, let's say out the door was $5,000. Let's say they got a decent deal on it. So $1,250 after 160 miles. What is the dollar cost per mile? Because that is brutal. That's a brutal amount of money to spend for only 160 miles of usage. But at least this seller has clean blue Texas title. This is also something I've seen with Royal Enfield sellers. None of them are like, oh, I'm financing it, I don't have the title in hand. I'm like, if you're selling a bike, you got to have the title in hand. I've bought hundreds of bikes at this point. I'm not messing with you if you don't have a title in the hand. Not doing it. It says 2 ignition keys included, the original engine guards, and a custom leather ride low seat. I think I can tell this gentleman maybe is a little bit older because they say only non-ethanol gas was used and 2 ignition keys included. You don't really see people saying that sort of thing. And these smaller Royal Enfields, I don't know why they do attract an older demographic that maybe is getting back into riding in their like 70s and 80s. They just want something really small, really low key, just something fun to bop around on that reminds them of their youth. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I think it's wonderful to enjoy motorcycling back like you did when you were young. It's fantastic. But the issue with the Meteor 350, much like a lot of the CF motos we looked at last week, is that they are already so cheap to buy, the Meteor 350s especially, that the resale market is pretty tough on these. You're going to have to discount them really heavily. And the seller already has, at $37.50, bought brand new MSRP of $46.99, losing $1,200 or so out the door cost on that is not great. I think it's a decent looking machine. To be honest, it's not really my preferred Royal Enfield. It's not that everything needs to be a complete speed freak type of machine. I was rocking a Ducati Scrambler Desert Sled for 6.5 years. I had that motorcycle and it made 70 something horsepower. It's not fast by any means, but this I think is just a little bit too slow for modern American roads. You're working with like 20 horsepower, I think 20 horsepower, 20 horsepower, and like 400 pounds of weight. So this thing has a lot of trouble just getting up and going, but I mean, it's a brand new bike. This is a brand spanking new motorcycle. So again, if you are in the market for a Royal Enfield, if you do want a Meteor 350, don't think that you got to go to the dealership and buy one brand new, because you can save 20%, 30% off the cost if you just wait a little bit and buy one used on the used market, because they apparently, I've seen this so many times, so they come up with barely any mileage on it. And, the person just either wasn't into motorcycle riding, thought they'd do it more and didn't end up doing it. There's a lot of reasons why people don't ride, and, their demise can be your gain. This one's also included with a little side bag here, so it can be a pretty nice little bop around commuter as well. So, there's some merit to the Royal Enfield 350, I will say, but that wouldn't be my preferred Royal Enfield, that's for sure. All right, let's go even further. Let's look at a first generation 2018 Himalayan 411. This was the first version of this bike that they debuted here. The super entry level, simple, utilitarian little adventure mule. This one's going for $1,950. It says runs and ride, no issues, salvage title in hand, 6,000 miles. Original MSRP for this was $4,499. So we have knocked off like almost $3,000 worth of MSRP on this thing. And I can see why. If you have a salvage title, no matter what, it's always going to be a hard sell. But I think the thing is, if this thing does indeed run and ride and is reasonably straight, which as I can see in the photos here, it looks like maybe the handlebars are bent in kind of a weird way. It looks like maybe the rear tire is sort of askew of where the tail is. This is one you would want to check out in person, because honestly, for me, salvage title on such a cheap motorcycle doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You know, I know a lot of you out there are looking for bikes sub $3,000, sub $2,000. And I always say, just save a little bit more. You get a lot more motorcycle. You get a lot more clean of a bike. That's the thing. You know, if you go and buy a $2,000 bike like this one, it may cost you so much more in terms of time and money and headaches and downtime. If you just save just that extra $1,000, $2,000 and get a used bike for $3,000 to $4,000 versus $2,000, the quality gap is sort of exponential. You know, you kind of start off here at $0, and then it kind of becomes like a sigmoid curve where there's this magical breaking point between $2,000 and $4,000 where the quality dramatically increases and then kind of levels off. So it's kind of an S-shaped curve. That's at least how I think of it. So that's something to keep in mind. So this one, I wouldn't really recommend it. You know, you might be enticed by the super cheap price. You might be enticed by the photos of this bike that look halfway decent. But take a note, this seller has the bike really far away. He's not showing you close-up images. The rear tire looks off center of where this is. You know, if it's a salvage title, that means this bike was totaled at some point and was not rebuilt back for the road. A rebuilt title means that somebody took it back and re-registered for the road and all that. So that's something you're going to want to think about. It's something you're definitely going to want to think about, and I think save a little bit more. So I wouldn't get this one. Moving on. Now, an older Royal Enfield. This is a 2012 Bullet 500 going for $2,500. So as I mentioned, in 2017 and 18, Royal Enfield really took off in the North American market. They released their Interceptor and Continental GT, the 650 class motor, the air-cooled 650cc parallel twin, and they then branched that out into a litany of different motorcycles, and Royal Enfield has been on a big up and up since 2018. The reason I wanted to pull this one up is because this is a 2012 example, back when Royal Enfield was still making their Bullet 500s, which this little kind of custom bobber thing is based on, right? So seller says, selling this bike for the buddy. It's a really cool little bike. It has 500cc fuel-injected bobber style, 17,400 miles on it, which, you know, it's kind of a lot for a bike like this. Cranks first slick and runs great. You just put a new battery in it. It has electric start and a Kickstarter. All the lights and blinkers work. It's a fun bike. Looks super cool. Great bike for someone to ride around asking not much money. But here's the thing. Royal Enfield's quality dramatically improved after 2017 and 18 because they then operated under new ownership and started really focusing on their quality of production. So these older 500s are not the best. I'm not going to lie. And this is a proper old school little platform. You know, this is back from when Royal Enfield, the 500s, this is an ancient architecture and an ancient style of bike. You kind of start getting the Janus vibe here a little bit, you know? And, you know, if that's your vibe, you want something kind of unique, something kind of different, I'd say go for it. I mean, look at this dash. This is a properly old school, like 1940s style dash because Royal Enfield did make these kind of like 1940s and 50s bikes for like decades unchanged in India and then started importing them in other places and exporting them. And, you know, you end up with a bike that it has the classic look about it, like the newer Royal Enfields, but it unfortunately does have a lot of classic bike issues. But they're relatively simple. So if you want a project bike, something you're going to put in the garage, just kind of learn with and have fun with, it's not a main form of transportation. It is literally just a fun toy for you to have fun with. I think this is great. It's a great starting point. A lot of people buy like 70s Japanese bikes with 4 cylinders and carburetors and all this crazy stuff. You really want something as simple as possible for your first kind of project. So this, I think, is an okay project buy, but it really highlights to you the strides that Royal Enfield has made, particularly when you look at like the new like Sherpa 450 motor. Like that was all in the span of about 15 years that this company did this. And it's really impressive, honestly. And so the Bullet 500, I think, is a pass for me. But it's something to keep in mind that Royal Enfield has changed this stuff over time. Moving on. All right, last but not least, a bit of a mulligan. Having some fun with this one here. It is not a Royal Enfield. It's actually a 2022 Janus Halcyon 250 going for $5,950. The original MSRP on this was way too much. I don't know what it was, but it was way too much. As many of you know, I infamously bought a Janus Halcyon 250. That bike has since been donated to Spite's Corner. I don't know if he's still making stuff with the Janus. I don't think I've seen it on his channel very much, but I hope he's still having fun with the bike because I just gave it to him because I was just done with it. I picked up mine for about $6,000, so this is right within the ballpark of what they're supposed to cost, which highlights to you how god-awful of a value proposition it is. If I didn't have mine merely just for the memes and to make videos with, I probably would not have bought it because it is such a terrible, terrible buy when it comes to any motorcycle, really. Because we just saw that Bullet 250, which functionally gives you the same thing as this Janus, except it does it even better somehow, which is hard to believe. And then you look at the Meteor 350 we just saw. It's cheaper than this thing. We'll do it better. And we saw, used Interceptor 650s that have a classic character and charm about them, and we'll do it better than this bike. So I'm not the biggest fan of the Janus Halcyon 250. You guys know that. This person says, garage maintained Janus Halcyon 250, 5-speed, 2 months ago, had a complete service. I don't know why it would have a complete service at 3,753 miles. This person says, bought it for my son, but now he wants something bigger. Unless your son was a 12-year-old, you should have never bought this for your son. Of course, he would outgrow it because these bikes are just heinous to ride. This one's in relatively good condition for 3,700 miles. It kind of boggles my brain that someone would spend that kind of mileage on such an atrocious little motorcycle. But, people often do the strangest things with motorcycling, right? They go out there, they have fun, they have some great adventures with it. And honestly, if for whatever reason you are in the market for a Janus, they really don't come up for sale very often. So if they do pop up in your local market and you really do want one, go ahead and buy it, right? Because this, I joked about it being the MSRP was way too much. I mean, this build probably was over $10,000, which I know it's absurd. Nobody should pay that much money for that sort of motorcycle, but people do, and I'm not the one to tell you how to spend your money. I'm merely trying to help you spend your money in the right ways when it comes to buying used motorcycles. So that's going to wrap it up for today. That's the Janus. That's the Royal Enfield. That's the state of them on Facebook Marketplace. I really think this is one of the best values out there right now. If you're trying to find a great used motorcycles, Royal Enfield is a super sweet spot to look for. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I appreciate it. I'll catch you in the next one. See you later.